Let's talk about the implications of the 2024 elections on your estate planning and on planning for your family. And I just want to point out this is an image from 2022 from the elections, and they talked about no sign of a red wave. Why am I displaying that now? It's not 2022 anymore. I bring it up because according to the historical models and the way that we looked at elections, 2022 probably should have been a red wave. If you looked at history, and you could often look at how's the economy doing. If it's doing well, the incumbents win. If it's doing poorly, the outsiders win. And 2022 didn't really follow that pattern. It was expected that Republicans would have a huge wave. They did obviously gain seats in the House, and they had some gains, but it wasn't anything close to what we would have expected. And I bring that up because we don't know what's going to happen. I think you can throw a lot of the historical playbooks out the window. So what do we need to keep an eye on? And I think there's a few state initiatives that we're keeping an eye on, and potential new laws in California, of course, the federal election. So before we even talk about this, I want to just make it clear. Do not rely on voters. Do not rely on Congress to bail you out. If you are going to face a big problem, whether it's Prop 19 or estate taxes, and you're worried that something might happen before anything changes, don't wait. Do you ever want to rely on Congress for anything? Like, Congress can't get anything done. Do you want to rely on California voters? I can't remember the last time California voters didn't approve a tax increase. I mean, maybe that'll change, but don't rely on voters. But let's talk about another measure that we're keeping an eye on, and that is an attempt. I don't know the name of this yet, but I believe it is already on the ballot, and it's an attempt to repeal the Costa Hawkins Act. Now, it's the second bullet point here. So there in California, there is rent control spreading. More and more cities are passing rent control ordinances. So we simultaneously have this issue of Prop 19, where people might inherit, a rental property taxes could skyrocket, and they might be unable to raise rents by more than 2% a year, even though their costs are skyrocketing. Maybe there'll be some exemptions there. But right now, cities, even Berkeley, cannot impose a rent control on single-family homes or properties built after a certain date. The Costa Hawkins Act was passed in the 90s in California, and it was intended to protect single-family homeowners from ever being kind of kicked out of their own houses or not allowed to go back to their own houses if they rent it, but also to encourage new development. So it said, look, if you build a new apartment building after a certain date, the state is not allowed to impose, localities cannot impose rent control. And if it's a single family home, they can't impose rent control. So there are attempts to repeal this, to make it so if you ever rent out your house, you can't raise your rent more than 2% a year if you live in Berkeley or Oakland or many parts of California. Right now, they can't do that. So we see this attempt to repeal Prop 19, but we also see an attempt to increase the ability of cities to impose rent control. So we see the politics of California moving in so many different directions. That's why it's so hard to predict. So keep an eye on that. There's also, I see a new ballot measure where I think the state legislature is trying to reduce the percentage needed for certain types of tax increases. A lot of tax increases require 2/3 majority, 67%. They want to reduce that, surprise, surprise, to make it 55% only needed for these super majorities to pass more tax increases. There's even talk in California of passing a wealth tax. And of course, they're going to start with the billionaires, but just watch. If they pass it, which I don't think would pass constitutional muster, because I think you'd have a bunch of billionaires fleeing California, but of course, the number is going to come down and down and down. And think about, again, when we think about, are these laws going to pass, these tax increases or not? Who left California in the last few years? There's been an exodus. I think it's slowed down. Hopefully people are moving back. But higher net worth people and more conservative voters have generally left California. What does that mean? It means the electorate, if anything, has probably leaned a little bit more to the left. So whatever your political leanings are, it's just a fact that it's probably more likely that tax increases are going to be approved and that things like Prop 19 might remain law. So we don't know for sure, but keep an eye on this. And of course, the federal elections, let's talk about that. We talked about the estate tax cliff that's coming on January 1st, 2026. How could it, there's a chance that it might not happen, right? But that would take a major act of Congress. And this is because the existing law, it sunsets. So if Congress does nothing, the exemption drops. It had to sunset. There's some arcane rules around budgetary laws that required this when they originally passed the original law that increased the exemption. So what does that mean? It means that there would have to be an act of Congress passed by all three branches to change the exemptions. So that means that one party would have to control all three branches, the Congress, the Senate, and the presidency. But even if they do, they might not get their act together to pass things. Democrats controlled all three branches a couple of years ago. They talked about changing the tax code. They barely did anything about it. So, Mike, what are your thoughts about the possibility that the estate tax cliff may or may not be coming?
I think maybe it's a chance in 20 that we're going to avert that. So let's even assume just for a moment that Republicans have the presidency and the Senate and the House. Think about tax now, not other issues.
Yeah,
just think about tax for a moment.
It's not good.
So is there a likelihood that they would deal with the estate tax, which I think is about fifth on their list of issues? And even if they were to have a proposal that seemed viable, the Republicans are fighting amongst themselves as much as the Democrats are fighting amongst themselves. So the likelihood of them coming together and passing anything substantial in the world of tax, my God, it is so unlikely. Again, just objective, not choosing sides on anything here, just being a realistic observer of our current reality called politics.
Right. And if there's any split, if one party controls the Congress, another party controls the other two, then there will be no change.
Even more
nothing will pass. If you have thoughts about this, you're watching on YouTube, what do you think is going to happen with the estate tax exemption? What do you think is going to happen in the 2024 elections? Your guess is as good as ours as to who's going to win what. So anyway, I think we need to be aware of all of this and don't rely on voters. Don't just think, oh, well, it'll get changed before then. I mean, it's possible, but don't gamble with your entire net worth and with your hard-earned assets.
Yeah.
So I think let's get to some key action items and what you need to be aware of and some steps that we really think you need to take. As we get into 2024, what are some crucial steps that you need to take, and what are some of the issues you need to be aware of? Just a checklist type thing. So I think the first thing we want to point out here is estate planning is not a one-off process. It is not get a trust done and you're done. This should be a process that takes place over time. Your situation will change, tax laws will change. It's about building a trusted advisor team for you and your family. You need to have that team, your financial advisor, your attorneys, your accountants. They should all work together, talk together as much as possible. Again, we're building that network for some of our clients, but you need to have that family office in place. I know family office means ultra high net worth families have had teams of their own personal advisors for generations, but we don't think only the ultra high net worth families should have these teams. Everybody should have their trusted advisor team. And we, of course, would love to be a part of that. But we want you to be aware of all these issues and how there's a lot of interplay. Your financial planning, your insurance planning, your tax planning, they all relate to your estate planning and protecting your assets in a very scary and changing world. So let's go to some specific checklist items that you should just be aware of. So do you even have a comprehensive estate plan in place? Do you have a living trust? Powers of attorney, advance directives? Do they address tax issues? Do they address asset protection issues? Do you have family protection trust, dynasty trust in place for your kids, if you have kids, to protect them from divorce, lawsuits, estate taxes? Do you have a child with special needs? Do you have a special needs trust in place? We want to make sure that you have all these tools in place. And if you have some of these in place, when was the last time that you looked at them? Has it been a few years? So make sure that you're taking an up-to-date look at your estate plan, your trust structure. We've given other talks about this. Do you have an AB trust? Do you not have an AB trust? Do you even know what kind of trust you have? That can have huge implications on your family's future when it comes to estate taxes or capital gains taxes. And it's very fact specific. Every family situation is different. There's no hard lines where we say, if you are in this financial situation, this is what you need. We need to get to know you. We need to understand, whoever you work with, they need to understand your specific situations to make sure that you have the right trust structure, the right people named, and that you have the right tools in place to protect everything you work so hard for. If you have a larger estate, again, $5 million net worth, if you're single, $10 million net worth, that's big numbers, but in California, there's quite a few families that are in that area. You need to be aware of the coming estate tax cliff. There's so much we can do ahead of time, but once that deadline comes, we lose that opportunity. Don't lose that opportunity. Do you own property in California with low assessed values, so low property taxes? Again, hope is not a strategy. Don't wait on California voters to bail you out. Maybe they will, but let's at least be aware of the issues and aware of the tools that are in place to protect your hard-earned properties. And if you reviewed your financial plan, again, if you have a great advisor, great. Make sure you're on top of these issues with them. If you don't have one, talk to us. We're building an amazing network of some trusted advisors, but either way, make sure one hand is talking to the other. Your estate planning team is talking to your financial advisory team. We can, of course, help with it all. We'd love to work with your financial advisor. If you have one, who's great. We meet new advisors all the time who we really like, but talk to us if you have these issues. Gilfix.com, easy to find us. And I want to make sure that you overcome the 3Ds, the danger of delay and denial. Some of these might resonate with you, like, I'm not going to worry about protective trust for my kids. They're never going to get divorced, right? Never divorces, or I'll get to this later. I already did a plan. I don't need to think about this. I already have it. I have documents on the shelf. I did an estate plan. I'm good. An estate plan should be a living, breathing thing. Take a fresh look at it every few years. Or I don't want to pay for this. I can use ChatGPT or a new AI tool. Just don't rely on that. Don't try this at home, but join our mailing list, gilfix.com, easy to join our mailing list. Please like, comment, share it. So very easy to find us. Subscribe to our Gilfix Law YouTube channel for more videos. But we of course welcome you if you're not already a client to join our client community. Easy to find us, 650-493-8070, gilfix.com /contact, or a number of ways to find us there. Thank you for spending time with us. We know time is so valuable. Attention is so valuable. It is a scary world out there, but I hope you and your family, as my mom likes to say, are staying safe, sane, and healthy. And thank you so much for spending some time with us today. We'll see you next time.